Interesting piece by Amber Duke over at the Spectator about the state of state parties. Uh, Boy, we know this all too well in Illinois as the state Republican Party, the Republican Party in the state, as well as the state Republican Party, are essentially defunct for a variety of reasons. And the compare and contrast of how the state party operated on the Republican side here versus how it operated under Madigan's thumb for so many decades and now effectively under Pritzker's is a interesting contrast. There's a lot here, but the piece is particularly relevant, the Amber Duke piece, because it speaks to chaotic situations in with respect to state parties in swing states. And in terms of the infrastructure, the much ballyhooed infrastructure, a national campaign, the Trump campaign or any other one, can't just do it alone. It's not going to be a nucleus of senior advisors and then opening up some campaign offices around swing states. Then you actually have to have personnel, ideally personnel with relationships in those states and understanding of the political topography in those states to effectively execute things like VBM, vote by mail programs, and ballot security programs and the like. So the state of state parties, it's below the fold, but it is definitely a relevant conversation. Amber Duke joins us now. She's the Spectator's Washington editor. She's also the author of The Snowflakes Revolt, How Woke Millennials Hijacked American Media. Amber, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, and good morning.
It was a good insight you and the Spectator folks had to talk to all of these state-level operatives and party faithful about the state of their state parties, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Georgia. Give us some. I mean, there's a few quotes from different officials that I definitely want to get into, but sort of give us the general perspective you came away with the state of state parties in swing states.
I definitely walked away from it concerned, to say the least. I had been hearing from friends of mine and sources that I've developed over the years for quite some time now that they were incredibly frustrated with the general chaos that has overtaken state Republican parties, that they feel like it's impossible to organize just about anything, and they feel like they're basically at an impasse where the parties have degraded so much that what's happening now is outside organizations and PACs are trying to fill the role that the state GOPs once did, which is okay to an extent, but previously in past decades, state parties were sort of this central location. They could, coordinate with the RNC and receive money from the RNC and kind of be that central locale for people to coalesce, and that's not really the case anymore. Basically, every insider, operative, consultant that I talked to talked about this long-running power struggle between the activist class and what we would probably call the establishment, meaning party bosses who have been in power for a long time. And I think, my instinct and instinct of others who are generally anti-establishment, maybe they're Trump supporters, would say, well, isn't that a good thing because we want the parties to represent the Trump base and the fact that the party is changing. And yes, to an extent, you certainly want them to be open to new ideas and what the base is telling you, but you also need people in charge who know how to operate. And so what's been happening is you get the underclass of very hardcore activists who the operatives were very clear to me. This is not really the party base. This is a super motivated subgroup is how it was described. But you have people who have come to, 2-3 meetings and say, I can run it better than you.
Right.
And they gather up their friends, they take over, and then like a tiger chasing the tail, it catches it and doesn't know what to do with it. So now we're unfortunately seeing the results of this takeover, and they haven't been good.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm certainly familiar with those descriptions, and not all quote unquote establishment types are the same, and not all activists are the same and have the same skill sets too. So, I mean, it's always complicated to just sort of do the establishment versus the grassroots because,
Right.
in different states you have different levels of talent among different people in those two camps. But maybe to put this in some, to provide some clarity to this picture, let's just take a state here. It's a state that, ostensibly Trump has to have, like Arizona. And of course, we saw the former state party head get cross with Carrie Lake. And that was sort of was complicated, but give us in both directions, but give us sort of the state of the state party in Arizona, because not only do you have some of these internal divides between the quote unquote establishment and the grassroots, but also you have the concern about Maricopa County and the administration of the election there.
Right. Well, and Arizona is a really great example of what I'm talking about, that this is not just, pro-Trump people versus never Trump people. Because the state party chair in Arizona prior to his ouster, Jeff DeWitt, was a big Trump guy. He actually worked in the president's first administration. He served as a high-level treasurer on both campaigns and basically controlled the purse strings for the Trump campaign. But what happened with Carrie Lake, of course, is that she released this audio recording that suggested he was trying to threaten her or bribe her to leave the race. And his explanation for that is that they are close friends. He knew that there were people more establishment than him, perhaps, and more never Trump than him, that wanted her out and were going to do whatever it took to do that, and was providing her fair warning. I think reasonable people can interpret the audio recording both ways. But that being said, because she released that publicly, Jeff DeWitt gets forced out. The party is thrown into chaos. It's in a state where there's been all of these questions about election fraud. And now Carrie Lake has won her primary in the Senate race and is running 7 to 10 points behind Ruben Gallego. So it seems like we're sort of cutting off the nose to spite our face.
Well, what's DeWitt doing now?
I have no idea, actually.
Is he in hiding?
I couldn't.
Well, I mean,
I tried to get in touch with him.
Yeah.
I did reach out to him.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I could not get in touch with him. I'm not sure, honestly.
Yeah, one of the comments, this from a former Michigan GOP official, talking about the grassroots. They don't want to listen to anything. It's just a big giant purity test of whatever they believe at the moment. I think it's undermined a lot of places, but it's especially evident in Michigan. In short, the collapse of the state party there happened because state parties are now beholden to grassroots activists, and the grassroots activists are retarded, said a former senior Michigan official. The poor choice of words, number one, but that sort of attitude by the establishment is just as unhelpful as the grassroots, as some in the grassroots attitude toward anybody who's been part of sort of the established Republican Party doesn't know anything. They're corrupt. I can do it better. We have sort of these dynamics. Now you're always going to have these dynamics in contests for titles and political power, real or perceived. But they can be, but sometimes it can be, it's in a system that is set up for more constructive outcomes versus one that just descends into warlordocracy, and it seems like that's a fine line.
Yeah, look, I totally agree that this goes both ways, right? I mean, on one hand, you have people who don't have experience trying to summarily take over state parties and then not doing a really great job when they get there. And then on the other side, you have an establishment that has been really contemptuous and kind of scornful of the grassroots base. And that's not a helpful attitude. It certainly makes these people feel alienated and contributes to the feeling that they need to be in charge so that their feelings, their views, their ideology gets represented in the party. And one of the consultants I spoke to, who mostly does work in the Western U.S., said to me, that's where I don't think you can say the grassroots folks are wrong. At some point, those people who invest in that message are going to expect a return on that investment. I mean, if you're someone who is part of that super motivated subgroup and you show up every weekend and you knock doors or you wave signs, you're always at the party meetings, and some guy who's in charge starts crapping all over your pro-Trump sentiments, for example,
Right.
and they elect candidates that fundamentally disagree with everything you believe in, you're going to start to get a little antsy and say, well, yeah, maybe I can do it better.
Well, and in here, I mean, Illinois being the good example of a bad example in so many respects, including with the Republican Party. So it's a combination of a couple of things. One is obvious and doesn't need much explanation. I mean, we've literally had people that are traitors in positions of elective office and party leadership. People that are now, supporting Kamala Harris, former governors like Jim Edgar, people that are now lobbyists for pro-abortion groups and for
Mm-hmm.
the LGBT and so on and so forth. So we've made terrible personnel decisions. That's one thing. But the other thing is what you're getting to, which I think is really key, is if you don't take positions and take up fights consistent with who you said you are and were when you come asking for money, or you come asking support for this candidate, or you come asking for support for yourself, then yeah, of course people are going to get antsy. They expect,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a precinct captain or a precinct committeeman. I'm a party loyalist, and I'm going to carry water for you, and then I'm going to go back to my job and my family, and I expect you to act in furtherance of what you said you were going to do. And when I see you doing the opposite, when I see all I want from you is to be who you said you were when you were running for office, and you go down to, in our case, Springfield, the state capital, and you vote for the left's tax increases, or you vote for the left sanctuary city, or you advance the left's agenda of your own volition, well, then don't expect when you come back, I'm going to be welcoming you with open arms into the community.
Right. And then if you're in party leadership and you re-endorse that candidate or, again, try to fundraise for them, your base and your grassroots activists are obviously going to be upset with you, and they're going to feel betrayed. And I think that's a reasonable way to feel. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it seems to me it's sort of like how you set it up. Here's sort of the standards of conduct. As a party, we're going to police ourselves, and we're going to impose consequences on bad actors. If you go down there and you do the bidding of the other side, if you do 180s on issues that you ran on, we're going to say, you know what, that person, as a party, we're not going to wait for the grassroots to say it. The party leadership is going to say, look, we can't in good faith support you in that district anymore. We have to be honest with with the voters, the Republican voters in that district, the Republican rank and file in that district, just as you have to be honest and submit to a reckoning. You made the choice to do something different than you said you were going to do. But it's just very rare to see that sort of policing, that sort of internal quality control from a state party or state or legislative caucuses. And certainly that, to me, is one of the key factors in the disintegration of the party structure in Illinois.
And if I may set it up this way, think of it as a group of people who solely want results and a group of people who just want to win. And you have to have a balance of the two, because if all you care about is winning, then yes, you're going to pick candidates who are squishy. You're going to put candidates in who, because you think they are moderate or centrist enough to win, but then they get in office and they don't do anything that's actually in furtherance of the Republican Party platform. That's not great. On the other hand, if you have someone who is only caring about results and you're constantly boosting and putting through the primary candidates who can't win a general election, you're never going to get the results you want because you're not choosing somebody who is the best candidate to run in that race. So you have to find the middle ground there. And these two groups in the state parties, the grassroots activists and the establishment class, have just been sniping at each other for years and engaging in this power struggle rather than figuring out, okay, how can we make sure that we are representing our base and making sure that activists are happy while also choosing candidates that are electable. I don't think those things have to be mutually exclusive.
No, I agree. And point of fact, I mean, again, just Illinois, since it's what I really know, and I'd be interested in what other perspectives you got from these swing states. But I mean, but you win on a conservative reform message, and then you go to Springfield or you go to Washington, D.C., and you walk away from the message that you ran on. Why not compile a record consistent with the message you ran on and won? That's the thing that's the most unnerving.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, we got to, I get it. In swing districts, you can't have, a conservative firebrand and so forth, and the big tent and all that. It's fine. It's fine. There's going to be some disagreement on the party. Obviously, there's a lot more disagreement in our party on issues like abortion and even school choice than on the other side. So that's fine. I get it. You don't have to agree with everything I say. And but the thing that's the most enraging is you say I'm going to be a conservative reformer. You run on that message. You win on that message. You walk away from conservative reform. That makes no sense.
Right. And here's the other thing, Dan, is that unfortunately there are also people who take advantage of the righteous anger of the grassroots activists to become grifters. Perfect example of this, I write about this in the piece, is what happened in Colorado. You had Dave Williams take over as party chair, and he was someone who was actually a Ted Cruz supporter in 2016, and now fashions himself as the biggest Trump supporter. He's Trump's number one guy. He was actually kicked off of the campaign as a surrogate in 2020 because he was giving the wrong impression that Trump had endorsed him in his congressional race and was using Trump's imagery on all of his campaign materials. He takes over the state party in 2022, 2023, and immediately institutes these massive filing fees so that primary candidates have to pay $40,000 in the presidential election to appear on Colorado's ballot. And he explained this as professionalizing the organization. But what was really going on is, one, the state party had a massive fundraising shortfall because it turns out Dave Williams wasn't very good at that. And two, he was using money from the filing fees to again run for Congress in 2024, using state party earmarked funds for his own benefit of running for Congress. And I imagine if you ask any of those presidential primary candidates what they thought their filing fee was going to, they wouldn't say Dave Williams's congressional campaign.
Yeah, 100%. Man, we've seen every grift imaginable here. So, yeah, we get it.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Amber Duke, she's the Spectator's Washington editor. She's also the author of the book, The Snowflakes Revolt, How Woke Millennials Hijacked American Media. And do check out this piece she did over at the Spectator, Inside the Perilous State of State Republican Parties. A great piece, Amber. Thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And she joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Connect with Dan and Amy on the AM 560 The Answer mobile app. Just text the word app to 64636 to download the app today.
From breaking news and weather across the country to insight from the brightest minds in